I'm Peter Abetz, a councillor with the City of Gosnells and a former state member of Parliament. People often ask me, how does our voting system work? And that's a particularly important question for people who are voting for the first time who've come from overseas. Because a lot of countries overseas have what's called the first past the post voting system, where you simply tick the box of your preferred candidate. But in Australia, we don't have that system of voting for our parliaments. We have what's called the preferential voting system. So for the lower house in the state and federal parliament, we have the same voting system. Basically what happens is that one person gets elected from each electorate, and so the number of candidates is usually quite small per electorate. Here I've made up a pretend ballot paper and I've put 10 candidates on here. And what you need to do is you need to number every square from 1 through to whatever number of candidates there are, in this case 10. You number them in the order of your preference. And so if you were to vote for a minor party, your vote is never wasted. Or if you vote for an independent, your vote is not wasted because it will flow on to the next person. Let me explain how that works. On election night, what happens is the votes are counted, and the people at the polling booth, they count the votes. They put all the votes for candidate A on that pile, and all the ones for B, and then for C and D and E. Then what happens is they look at who actually has the lowest number of votes. It looks like A. So those papers are taken, and whatever people put as number 2 vote, that now gets put on the relevant candidate's pile. Then they look again, who has the lowest number of votes? It looks like B's got the lowest number, so the next vote down is the one that now counts. And so they get distributed. It's called allocating preferences. And now we've got 3 candidates. Who has the least number of votes? We pick that one up, and their votes, the next one down, gets allocated to whichever of these is above the others. So now we have 2 left over, and of course the one with the most is the one who wins the election, or wins the seat rather, and that is the lucky person. So the lower house, that's pretty straightforward. So if you want to vote for a minor party, like Australian Christians, or for an independent, that's fine. Your vote is not wasted, because if they don't get elected, it flows in full value on to the next person and on to the next, and so on. Now for the upper house, in the state, we call it the Legislative Council. There are 37 people elected. In the federal parliament, normally there's 6 people elected for the Senate. And the ballot paper is quite different to the lower house ballot paper. The upper house ballot paper is quite a long piece of paper and has a dark line on it, and you have a choice of voting above the line or below the line. Above the line, it's the parties, and below the line, all the individual candidates are listed. So obviously voting above the line is simpler. You simply number the parties in the order of your preference. If you vote below the line, you have to number the individual candidates, and you can go anywhere you like. There's no pattern required. As long as it's in numerical order, that's all that matters. Now, with the when you vote and you're voting for, say, independents and minor parties first, that's fine. And if they do not get elected, of course, the vote flows through to your next preference and so on. So what you need to keep in mind is that if you are voting for independents and minor parties, it is important to include the major party of your choice in that numbering sequence so that your vote cannot become exhausted. You see, if you only vote for minor parties or for candidates of minor parties below the line, if they don't get elected, there's nowhere else for your preferences to flow because you've run out of numbers. So above the line, you need to number at least 1 to 6, although I would recommend more than that. And as I said before, make sure you include the major party of your choice towards the end of your numbering system, numbering sequence. And likewise, if you vote below the line. So the great thing is that your vote is never wasted unless you actually don't fill it in properly, and or if you allow your vote to be exhausted. So the voting system is quite simple. It's one of the privileges we have in this country that we can choose those who represent us in our state and federal parliaments. And so I would encourage you to exercise your right thoughtfully and do so with serious thought. And if you have any questions, my contact details are on the City of Gosnell's website. If you'd like to be in touch, I'm more than happy to go to community groups and explain how the system works for further clarity. Enjoy voting.